Most Americans don't feel trapped all at once. There is no single moment where life collapses, no dramatic warning, no clear breaking point. Instead, it happens quietly. One obligation at a time, one bill at a time, one exhausted morning where you wake up already tired, already behind, already negotiating with the day before it even starts. You followed the rules. You worked hard. You stayed responsible. And yet, somewhere along the way, life stopped feeling like progress and started feeling like maintenance. Just keeping things from falling apart. Just surviving the week. Just hoping nothing goes wrong. Because one small emergency feels like it could undo everything. This is the American life trap. Not poverty in the traditional sense. Not failure. But a constant state of pressure where your time, attention, health, and peace are slowly consumed by systems that were supposed to support you. And the most dangerous part, most people blame themselves. They think they're bad with money, not disciplined enough, not motivated enough, not strong enough. But the truth is more uncomfortable. The modern American system is designed to keep people functioning, not free, productive, not secure, busy, not fulfilled. Escaping the country isn't an option for most people. And honestly, it doesn't have to be. The trap isn't geography, it's design. And while no individual can dismantle the entire system, there are ways to reduce its grip on your life, quietly, realistically, without fantasy or rebellion. This documentary isn't about quitting society. It's about reclaiming parts of yourself inside it. The first step is understanding how the trap works and where you still have leverage. The American life trap begins with something that sounds reasonable on the surface: constant optimization. From a young age, Americans are taught that life is a project. Your career must always be advancing. Your income must always be growing. Your body must always be improving. Your time must always be productive. Rest becomes something you earn. Stillness becomes guilt. Enough is never enough. And so people run, not toward joy, but away from falling behind. They accept longer hours because that's what responsible adults do. They tolerate chronic stress because that's the price of stability. They delay living because someday things will finally slow down, but they rarely do. Over time, optimization quietly becomes exhaustion. You don't feel free, you feel managed. Managed by deadlines, managed by bills, managed by the fear that if you slow down, everything collapses. This is where the first reduction begins. Not with quitting your job, not with moving off the grid, but with redefining what progress actually means. Way 1. Stop measuring life only through income and output in America. Income has become a moral measurement. Not just what you earn, but what you're worth. People introduce themselves by what they do. They judge their success by salary numbers. They endure jobs they hate because leaving feels like regression. But here's the hidden truth. Income growth without life stability is not progress. It's acceleration toward burnout. Many Americans today earn more than previous generations, yet feel poorer, more anxious, and less secure. Not because they failed, but because expenses, risk, and responsibility have been shifted downward onto individuals. Healthcare costs, housing instability, retirement uncertainty, education, debt. More income simply means higher exposure, not safety. Reducing the trap starts with separating dignity from income. This doesn't mean becoming careless. It means recognizing that working more, earning more, and sacrificing more doesn't automatically improve your life. Ask a different question than how do I make more? Ask, what part of my life is this money actually protecting? What stress am I accepting that money cannot fix? What am I trading away that I won't get back? Time, health, relationships, mental clarity. These are non-renewable resources. When income becomes the only metric, everything else quietly depletes. The system benefits when you believe your only solution is to work harder. You reduce the trap when you decide that stability matters more than status. Once you detach your identity from constant earning, you begin to see the second layer of the trap, the illusion of convenience. America is built around speed. Fast food, fast shipping, fast answers, fast upgrades. Everything is designed to save time, yet no one feels like they have any. Why? Because convenience doesn't reduce work, it shifts it. Monthly subscriptions replace ownership, apps replace boundaries, services replace skills. Each convenience feels small, but together they create a life that is expensive, fragmented, and dependent. You're not just paying money, you're paying mental load, managing accounts, tracking renewals, comparing plans, solving problems that didn't exist 10 years ago. This is the second place the trap tightens and where reduction becomes possible. Way to reduce dependence before you reduce expenses. Most financial advice focuses on budgeting, but budgeting doesn't address the real issue, dependence. The more systems your life relies on, the more fragile it becomes. When one app fails, one bill spikes, one service changes terms, your stress increases instantly. Reducing the American life trap doesn't mean becoming minimalist. It means becoming less dependent on fragile systems, learning basic skills again, cooking more meals, fixing small things, owning fewer but more durable items, simplifying recurring obligations. Each act of reduced dependence restores a small amount of control, not dramatic, but cumulative. The system thrives when people outsource everything, including resilience. You weaken the trap when you quietly take some of it back. But even with less dependence, many Americans still feel constantly behind. That's because the trap isn't just financial, it's psychological. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. America doesn't just sell products, it sells comparison. You are constantly exposed to lives that look better, easier, more successful than yours. Not real lives, curated fragments. This creates a permanent sense of inadequacy. You not just trying to live, you trying to keep up with a moving target that never stops shifting. This is not accidental. Comparison fuels consumption. Insecurity fuels compliance. Reducing the trap requires one of the hardest shifts of all. Way 3 begins here, and it's where most people resist. You cannot reduce the American life trap while constantly measuring yourself against people you will never meet, lives you will never live, and standards designed to keep you dissatisfied. But this part, the psychology of comparison, deserves more than a quick explanation, because it's where identity, self-worth, and survival intersect. And that's where part 2 begins. One of the most invisible forces tightening the American life trap is comparison, not the simple kind where people notice success around them, but the industrialized, non-stop comparison that modern America quietly runs on. For most of human history, people compared themselves to a small circle, neighbors, co-workers, relatives, maybe a few public figures. Today, Americans are exposed to thousands of idealized lives every week. carefully edited, algorithmically amplified, and designed to feel normal. This constant exposure quietly recalibrates expectations. What once felt like a comfortable life now feels inadequate. What once felt like success now feels like barely keeping up. The problem is not envy in a moral sense. The problem is psychological distortion. When the reference point keeps moving upward, satisfaction becomes mathematically impossible. This is why many Americans feel poor even when they are objectively stable. It is why a household earning more than previous generations still feels anxious, still delays joy, still fears the future. The system does not need people to be broke. It needs them to feel behind. Feeling behind keeps people compliant. It keeps them working longer hours, accepting worse conditions, tolerating stress they would have rejected in another era. The trap is emotional before it is financial. What makes this especially dangerous is that comparison does not feel like oppression. It feels like motivation. People tell themselves they are simply striving for better, trying to improve, trying to provide. But when improvement becomes endless and undefined, it turns into pressure. Life becomes a race with no finish line. Every milestone loses its meaning the moment it is reached because something else immediately replaces it. A bigger home, a better car, a more impressive lifestyle, a more productive version of yourself. Reducing the American life trap requires a conscious refusal to let externally constructed standards define internal worth. This is not about rejecting ambition or becoming passive. It is about reclaiming authority over what a good life actually looks like. Many people have never paused long enough to define that for themselves. They inherit it from advertising, social media, corporate culture, and family expectations, then spend decades chasing something they never consciously chose. This is where the third way to reduce the trap fully takes shape. Rebuilding internal benchmarks instead of external ones. When success is defined internally, it becomes more stable. It becomes rooted in health, time, autonomy, emotional calm, and meaningful relationships, rather than constant escalation. This shift alone does not change the system, but it changes how deeply the system can reach into your psyche. It lowers anxiety. It reduces impulsive consumption. It restores a sense of sufficiency that modern America quietly discourages. But even with clearer internal standards, Americans still face a harsher reality than previous generations did. Risk has been privatized. In earlier decades, many of life's biggest uncertainties were buffered collectively. Healthcare was more affordable. Housing was more attainable. Education debt was lower. Retirement felt more predictable. Over time, these buffers weakened, and responsibility shifted onto individuals. The narrative changed subtly. Structural problems were reframed as personal failures. If you struggled, it meant you mismanaged. If you were exhausted, it meant you lacked discipline. If you fell behind, it meant you made poor choices. This shift created a culture where people feel permanently on trial. Every decision feels high stakes. One medical emergency, one layoff, one family crisis can undo years of effort. Living under constant risk produces a specific kind of anxiety, one that never fully turns off. Even during rest, the mind remains alert, scanning for threats. This is why so many Americans report feeling tired even after sleeping. Their bodies may rest, but their nervous systems do not. Reducing the American life trap, therefore, requires addressing not just money or mindset, but risk exposure. This leads directly into the fourth way, which begins with a counterintuitive truth. Security is not built by maximizing income, but by minimizing vulnerability. Many Americans chase higher pay, believing it will finally make them feel safe. In reality, higher income often comes with higher fixed costs, higher expectations, and higher dependence on unstable systems. The result is not freedom, but fragility at a higher level. Reducing vulnerability means creating margins: financial margin, time margin, emotional margin. It means resisting lifestyle inflation, not out of deprivation, but out of self-protection. It means choosing stability over impressiveness. It means accepting that some forms of success advertised by modern culture are actually traps in disguise, because they increase exposure without increasing resilience. At the same time, Americans are taught to handle everything alone. Independence is celebrated, but interdependence is quietly eroded. People move frequently, communities thin out, extended families scatter. When problems arise, individuals are expected to solve them privately, often through debt, therapy, or hustle, rather than shared support. This isolation deepens the trap, because isolation magnifies stress. Problems feel heavier when carried alone. Reversing this does not require building perfect communities or returning to the past. It begins with small acts of reconnection, trusted relationships, mutual support, shared resources. Even informal networks reduce risk more effectively than many financial products. Humans evolved to survive collectively, not individually. The modern American system often ignores this reality, and people pay the psychological price. By this point, a pattern becomes clear. The American life trap is not one thing. It is a layered system of pressures that reinforce each other. Comparison that fuels consumption, risk that fuels anxiety, isolation that fuels dependence, and narratives that shift blame onto individuals. Reducing the trap does not mean defeating it entirely. It means loosening its grip enough to breathe, think clearly, and reclaim parts of life that feel lost. And yet, even after all these reductions, one final force remains. It is the deepest and most personal part of the trap: the belief that slowing down is failure, the fear that choosing a quieter life means falling behind forever, the sense that rest must be justified, joy must be earned, and peace must wait until some imaginary future. That belief is not accidental. It is learned, and it can be unlearned. This is where the final way begins, and where the documentary moves from analysis into something more intimate. Because the last reduction is not about systems, money, or culture. It is about reclaiming permission to live now, not someday. That is where part 3 begins. The deepest layer of the American life trap is not financial pressure or work overload. It is the internalized belief that life is something you earn later, not something you are allowed to experience now. This belief quietly shapes decisions every day. It convinces people to delay rest, postpone joy, and tolerate conditions that slowly drain them, all in the name of a future that remains permanently out of reach. Many Americans are not living their lives. They are preparing for them. This mindset did not emerge by accident. It was built through decades of messaging that framed sacrifice as virtue and endurance as success. Work hard now so you can relax later. Grind through your youth so you can enjoy retirement. Push yourself beyond your limits because that is what responsible people do. The problem is that later keeps moving. Retirement ages rise, healthcare costs explode, economic shocks reset plans. The promised payoff becomes less certain, while the cost of waiting keeps accumulating in the form of stress, lost health, and fractured relationships. Reducing the American life trap, therefore, requires a radical but quiet shift, redefining what responsibility actually means. Responsibility is often framed as self-denial, as choosing obligation over well-being, as putting life on hold for the sake of stability. But true responsibility includes sustainability, a system that requires people to burn themselves out to survive is not responsible, it is extractive. And when individuals internalize extractive logic, they begin treating themselves as resources rather than humans. This is why so many Americans feel guilty when they slow down. Rest feels undeserved. Leisure feels suspicious. Enjoyment feels like indulgence. Even moments of peace are interrupted by the sense that something productive should be happening instead. The trap tightens not because people lack discipline, but because they have been disciplined too well by a culture that equates worth with output. The fifth way to reduce the American life trap begins here, reclaiming time as a human need, not a reward. This does not mean quitting work, abandoning goals, or rejecting effort. It means rejecting the idea that exhaustion is proof of virtue. It means recognizing that a life built entirely around future security can quietly erase present meaning. Time is the one resource that cannot be replenished, yet modern American life treats it as infinitely compressible, endlessly monetizable, and morally suspect when used for rest. When people begin protecting time intentionally, something shifts, decisions change, spending patterns soften, ambitions clarify, relationships deepen. This is not because time itself solves problems, but because it creates space to see them clearly. Constant busyness acts like noise. It prevents reflection. It keeps people reacting instead of choosing. Slowing down does not weaken resilience, it restores it. There is also a political dimension to this shift, even when it remains deeply personal. Systems that benefit from overwork depend on people believing they have no alternative. When individuals begin to value balance, health, and sufficiency, they become harder to manipulate through fear. They become less reactive to scarcity narratives. They start asking different questions, not just about how to survive, but about what kind of life is actually worth sustaining. This is why reducing the American life trap is not about escaping the country or rejecting society entirely. It is about reducing unnecessary exposure to its most harmful pressures. It is about choosing a narrower, more intentional path through a system designed to overwhelm. Small changes compound, fewer comparisons, lower fixed costs, stronger relationships, protected time, clearer internal definitions of success. None of these individually dismantle the trap, but together they loosen it enough to allow movement. Importantly, this path does not look the same for everyone. For some, reducing the trap means downsizing. For others, it means renegotiating work boundaries. For others, it means leaving toxic environments, even at a financial cost. The common thread is not sacrifice for its own sake, but alignment. When life choices align with values rather than expectations, stress decreases even when challenges remain. There will always be pressure in American life. The system is not designed for ease. But pressure does not have to become identity. Struggle does not have to become personality. Many people mistake endurance for meaning, believing that suffering validates their effort. In reality, meaning often emerges not from how much one endures, but from how intentionally one lives. At this stage, a difficult realization often emerges. The American life trap thrives on silence. People assume everyone else is managing better, coping more easily, succeeding more smoothly. In truth, many are quietly overwhelmed. They just do not talk about it. When this silence breaks, something powerful happens. Shame dissolves, perspective returns. The struggle becomes contextual rather than personal. This is why stories matter. Not motivational success stories that imply anyone can escape if they try hard enough, but honest accounts of limits, trade-offs, and recalibration. These stories do not promise escape. They offer relief. They remind people that difficulty is not evidence of failure, but often evidence of living inside a system that demands too much. Reducing the American life trap is not a one-time decision. It is a continuous process of noticing when pressure increases, when fear drives choices, and when life begins shrinking around survival. It requires periodic recalibration. It requires permission to change course. It requires rejecting the idea that once a path is chosen, it must be followed to the end regardless of cost. As this part closes, one truth becomes unavoidable. The American life trap does not collapse dramatically. It tightens gradually, and it loosens the same way, quietly, intentionally, through choices that prioritize humanity over performance. What remains now is not another strategy, but a question. What happens when enough people stop confusing survival with living? What changes when the definition of success shifts from accumulation to sufficiency, from speed to sustainability, from endurance to presence? That question leads directly into the conclusion, because the final part is not about reducing the trap further. It is about understanding what becomes possible once its grip begins to fade. That is where part 4 begins. When the American life trap begins to loosen, it does not feel like victory. It feels unfamiliar. For many people, pressure has been a constant companion for so long that its absence creates discomfort. Slowing down can feel wrong. Choosing less can feel risky. Saying no can feel like falling behind. This reaction is not weakness, it is conditioning. A system built on urgency teaches people to associate safety with constant motion, even when that motion is exhausting. But over time, something subtle changes. The nervous system begins to settle. Decisions feel less reactive. Fear loses some of its authority. Life stops feeling like a series of deadlines and starts feeling more like a sequence of moments. This shift does not eliminate hardship. Bills still exist. Work still demands effort. Uncertainty does not disappear. What changes is the internal experience of living. The weight becomes more evenly distributed instead of pressing constantly on the chest. This is where many Americans realize something unsettling but liberating. Much of the pressure they carried was never strictly necessary. It was learned, reinforced, normalized. The fear of slowing down, the guilt of resting, the anxiety of choosing differently were not personal flaws, but responses to a culture that rewards self-sacrifice without limits. Once this becomes visible, it becomes harder to unsee. Reducing the American life trap does not require rejecting responsibility. It requires redefining it. Responsibility is not the endless postponement of life. It is not working until health collapses. It is not accepting instability as normal. True responsibility includes protecting the future without erasing the present. It includes building a life that can be sustained, not just survived. This redefinition has quiet consequences. People begin to measure success less by appearances and more by experience. They notice how often they feel calm, how often they laugh without distraction, how often they have energy at the end of the day. These metrics rarely appear on resumes or social feeds, but they shape the quality of existence far more than status ever could. The American system may not change quickly. Structural reforms move slowly. Economic pressures remain real, but individuals are not powerless within this reality. Every reduction of unnecessary pressure is an act of agency. Every refusal to equate worth with exhaustion is a form of resistance. Every choice that prioritizes health, connection, and meaning weakens the logic of the trap, if only slightly. And when many people make these small shifts, culture begins to change at the edges. Expectations soften, conversations deepen, alternatives become visible. What once felt impossible starts to feel negotiable. The future opens just enough to allow imagination again. Perhaps the most important realization is this: escaping the American life trap does not mean leaving the country or rejecting ambition. It means refusing to let fear be the primary architect of your life. It means choosing presence over perpetual preparation. It means understanding that a meaningful life is not built in a distant future, but assembled slowly in the present through choices that honor both survival and joy. There will always be voices insisting that this is unrealistic, that slowing down is irresponsible, that choosing less means settling. But history shows that societies built entirely on pressure eventually fracture. Humans need margin. They need rest. They need connection. Ignoring these needs does not create strength. It creates burnout. The American life trap thrives when people believe they are alone in their struggle. But the truth is simpler and more hopeful. Many feel this weight. Many are questioning it. Many are quietly searching for ways to live better within imperfect conditions. The trap weakens when these realizations become shared. This documentary is not a promise of escape. It is an invitation to awareness. Awareness of the forces shaping daily life. Awareness of choices that reduce harm. Awareness that a different relationship with work, money, time, and self is possible, even now, because the most powerful reduction is not external, it is internal. It is the moment you stop asking, "How much more can I endure?" and start asking, "What kind of life do I want to protect?" That question does not end the struggle, but it changes the direction of the journey. And sometimes that is enough to finally breathe.